Hello and welcome to this video. In this lecture, you will learn Gaia's user interface. So when you launch Gaia, you'll be greeted by the startup screen, which is what we are currently looking at. And from here, you have several options. You can create a new project based on templates, such as landscape or mountain, or start with a blank project. There are also more advanced templates. By clicking on this icon resembling a filing cabinet, we can see a list of advanced templates, and we have advanced templates for every category, such as landscape, mountain, and even water. If you hover over any of these, you will get a thumbnail. You have your recent files on the right side here. If you hover over these, you get a preview thumbnail, which is handy, just showing what you worked on. We have this interesting button titled Launch Erosion Studio. Now, Erosion Studio is a separate application bundled with Gaia, as the name suggests, obviously focused on just the erosion process, and we will learn more about Erosion Studio in another video. For now though, let's get to know Gaia's interface. Click on the mountain template. When you use the mountain template, the result will be different every time. So if your mountain looks different to mine, don't worry, that's okay and perfectly normal. Gaia is user-friendly for artists. It has a simple interface. There are actually only 4 main components. Firstly, it's the 3D viewport, which currently displays our mountain. On the far right-hand side, we have properties. We also have a build tab here, which is used for exporting our terrain into height maps. The properties show the settings for the currently selected node. So just to illustrate, click on mountain here and we can see the settings pop up: scale, edge, height, seed. Feel free to play with these and see what effect it has on your mountain. You can click on the seed. The seed is the randomization, so it will have the greatest effect. You can click around here till you get something that you like. To activate the 3D viewport, click anywhere within it, and you'll notice this orange border appear on the side here. You can zoom in and out using your mouse wheel. If your mouse doesn't have a wheel, hold Alt key and right mouse button. To rotate the camera, hold Alt key and left mouse button while dragging your mouse around. You can pan the camera holding the mouse wheel button down. But you can also use WASD keys, which I prefer anyway, as it's more precise and smoother. Q and E moves the camera up and down, and then I hold Alt and rotate with the left mouse button and dragging. Take note of the toolbar on the right hand side here. The top 2 buttons toggles between an orbit camera and a first person camera view, as such. When in the first person mode, you can navigate the camera similar to a first person game, using WASD for movement. However, a slight difference from games, you also have to hold left mouse button to turn the camera. So just WASD and then left mouse button to turn the camera. And I still use E and Q to move the camera up and down. We can get a few different perspectives easy this way. If you want to go back to orbit mode, you just click the button at the top. And then camera controls should be back to normal. If you use other 3D software, you might prefer different camera controls. If so, click the Gaia logo up here in the top left corner and go to Preferences and then Navigation. Here you can change the controls for orbit, pan, and zoom. I'm just going to leave them at the default for now. but modify them to your liking if you want. It makes it easier to jump between software if you use multiple 3D softwares. Now we can split the viewport by clicking on the 2D button, and we get a top-down perspective on the right side. The icon resembling an A or a pair of compasses will display the raw data. Now we can see that we're not dealing with a 3D mesh, but rather a grayscale raster image. So our mountain is just a flat image indicating the elevation for each pixel based on its grayscale value. When we build or render our terrain file for using Unreal Engine, we export a 16-bit height map. So this means the range of grayscale values we work with extends from 0 to 65,536 for each pixel. Of course, these pixels will translate into 3D vertices in Unreal Engine. Now to get our viewport back to normal, simply click the 2D icon button. We can also adjust the lighting setup for our viewport by clicking on this sun icon. Sun elevation allows us to control the time of day. While the sun's azimuth can be adjusted to mimic the natural variation caused by the Earth's tilt and its orbit around the sun. There's a wide range of settings available here to customize the lighting setup according to your preferences, so feel free to experiment with these settings for a bit. Typically, we don't pay too much attention to the lighting setup in Gaia since we only export a height map and this information is lost. However, it's essential to have at least a setup that lets us see the details we're creating, and if you do know that the terrain you're making will be used in a specific time of day scenario, then adjusting it to check how it looks under specific conditions is useful. Pay particular attention to shadows to gauge the visual impact. Let's take a closer look at the graph panel. Here we combine nodes to construct a graph. So it's of course this bottom panel here. We only have two nodes currently, the mountain node and the wizard node. Note that the mountain node is green, and if you check the toolbox on the left side here, we can see the same color coding where we have green for primitives and for geoprimitives. Now these are creation nodes responsible for generating terrain, while other nodes help enhance detail and apply processes like erosion simulation. Scrolling down, you'll find filters, erosion, snow, water, and much more. We'll get into detail with all these in a later video. To arrange nodes in the graph, simply select them and drag around. You can marquee select using the left mouse button and dragging, so you can select several nodes at once. Let's select these two nodes and delete them. Either use the delete key on your keyboard or just right click and select delete from the menu. From the toolbox you can drag out nodes. Let's try the ridge node. Just drag and drop. You'll notice the 3D viewport immediately updates to render this node. Feel free to play with the settings in the properties panel. The seed is the property used for randomization, so if you change it, the result will be completely different. You can adjust the rendering resolution of the 3D viewport for more detail. At the top toolbar, it currently reads 0.5K. Change it to 1K. To understand how nodes are combined, drag out an erosion node from the toolbox. You have to scroll down a bit. Here we have erosion. Now, to connect these to each other, just drag from the output connector of the ridge node into the input connector of the erosion node. Now, one thing to note here is that my connectors are named, as you can see, mask, output, And this is actually something you might have to change in preferences. So click the Gaia button, preferences, and on node style, make sure you are on extended. Filament is the default. Yes. So you can see there are no names. You can still hold over them and see the names. Extended is good for beginners. Now, let me show you another method which we could have used to connect the nodes. Delete this erosion node. Simply drag out from the output here, let go, and then you can start typing ER, arrow down, enter, and it's connected. You can even do another way, delete erosion node, drag and drop on top of the ridge. And if we'd like to combine two creation nodes, delete erosion, you can delete ridge as well. Go to the top here, drag out dunes, then perhaps range. Now to combine these two, we drag from the output of the one into the other, and we get a combined node. Now by default, this has a combination ratio of 50%, but we can change it. You might have noticed that the 3D viewport changes what it renders based on which node we have selected in the graph. So if I select the dunes node, the viewport updates, showing only the dunes. I select range, same thing. Selecting the combine node will show us the effect of both nodes combined. But what if I want to make changes to the range node while I see the combined result? Then we have to pin the node, as it's called in Gaia, essentially locking the rendering viewport to that node. So right click the combine node and select pin, or use the hotkey, which is F. Now we can select the range node, we adjust its properties and still see the effect of the dunes node applied. We can go into the dunes node and change its settings. Adjusting the seed really changes the result in a drastic way. Let's go back into the combine node and adjust the ratio here. That's okay for now. This lecture is about the interface, so in the next lecture we will focus on creating a good realistic terrain. But for now, just focus on the interface. So the interface can be customized in a few different ways. From the hamburger menu on the toolbox, you can change its position, full, top, or bottom. We can also collapse it using the small arrow here. And of course, we can adjust all the splits for the panels. The toggle switch here on the toolbox switches between all nodes and the most used nodes. One thing that is kind of interesting is Gaia has a learning and predictive system that learns your node connection patterns. So it uses this information to provide suggestions when you build your graphs. When you have a big graph that it can learn from, you can use the learn command, learn from this terrain, and this will help the system be more accurate. And that concludes this video. So feel free to experiment and familiarize yourself more with the interface, try out different nodes, combine them and adjust their properties. But when you're ready, continue to the next lecture, which is all about creating realistic terrains.